I know it's Guccifer. I've been accused of being Guccifer, been called by New York Magazine, New York Times, you name it. And then you think I know how to pronounce it. I'm from Texas. I butcher stuff. It's okay. Guccifer. I just think of Deucifer. Rob Dew's nickname. Paul Watson's article's up there. Top hacker, Chicago nuke attack plan for 2015. Huge news. And folks say in the comments, no, take Detroit instead. Detroit is considered a dead already. Chicago's suffering. You can see the reasoning there, yeah. For whatever reason, that's the intel keeps coming out in the chatter. Michael D'Angelo says Chicago's definitely the city I wouldn't mind getting nuked. Maybe we should open the phones up for Chicagoans and say, what do you think of Guccifer, the top hacker who keeps leaking incredibly classified stuff, coming out and saying that he's gone through high-level people's intel, and that's the plan. All I know is we got a panic communique by high-level folks at Dias.
I'm Anthony Gucciardi, and last Tuesday, myself and Alex Jones delivered an exclusive report on super high-level military intelligence that revealed to us there was a Black Ops-style, unsigned nuclear warhead transfer going on from Dias Air Force Base in Texas to South Carolina. That's all we were told. This is a credible source. We were very concerned. Yesterday night, we got a news tip through the news tip option on our websites that Lindsey Graham had come out and said that if we don't attack Syria, he expects, he fears, and he warns that a nuclear attack could be carried out in South Carolina through some type of boat or something like that. That immediately, when I read that, my heart was pounding. We came out with this news. We are actually a little scared. This is the most important thing we may have covered in recent years. And Lindsey Graham is now warning of this nuclear attack. What I'm going to do today is I already called Dias Air Force Base. They gave me the runaround, told me to call back, told me they were going to call me back as soon as they could. They never called me back. We're going to call not only Dias Air Force Base and set the record straight, we're going to contact Lindsey Graham in his office, and we are going to ask for answers immediately. We're looking at a potential nuclear attack in the United States, potentially carried out by the U.S. government or elements of the rogue government inside the U.S. government, taking these nuclear weapons, or whoever took them, from Texas, delivering them to South Carolina. This is an exclusive, a massive bombshell report. We're going to call them right now.
Public Affairs, Captain Gillibo.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Anthony Gucciardi. I just wanted to ask you a couple questions if you have the time.
Sure, what's going on?
Great, cool. So, well, a couple days ago on Tuesday, we received intelligence reports and a bunch of stuff we found also coinciding with people in the Dias area that there was some type of transfer going on to South Carolina from your Air Force base. Do you know anything about that?
What we'll have to do here is you'll have to just let me know all of your questions, and I'm going to have to look into them, and I'm going to have to get back to you. Well, so you want to know about some weapons transfers?
Well, actually, I never said anything about weapons. Are you aware of a weapons transfer that must have gone on then?
Let me clarify your questions, and then I'll get them down, and we will have to get back to you.
Well, I'm just wondering if there was a transfer. I didn't say anything about weapons, but was there a weapons transfer going on? It seems to indicate that you were saying there was a weapons transfer of some kind. Let me just give you a little bit about my intelligence on this subject. We know from high-level military sources that we're not going to talk about that there was indeed a nuclear warhead transfer from Dias Air Force Base. And then we do know on that same day, after we got this intelligence, that Lindsey Graham came out and said in a speech that if we don't attack Syria, there could be a nuclear attack in South Carolina, Charleston. And I also happen to know that the Dias nuclear warheads were being transferred to South Carolina.
Is there a question there, Anthony?
I am wondering, was there a transfer of any type of weapons, as you seem to have indicated? This is a serious thing. If there are nuclear warheads coming from Dyess Air Force Base to South Carolina, and then Lindsey Graham comes out and says, if we don't attack Syria, then terrorists are going to blow up South Carolina, Charleston, it's a big deal. I actually originally called you on Tuesday, and it was kind of just a little funny thing, like, I knew you wouldn't tell me anything, but this is actually a serious thing. We're talking about a nuclear issue here.
Okay. Well, like I said before, if you just give me your questions and
That's my question. Was there a transfer of any kind? I asked if there was a transfer. You seem to acknowledge that there might have been a weapons transfer. Was there a weapons transfer of any kind going on to South Carolina?
Do you have a number or an email that I can get back with you?
Well, you have my number. I called you before. You said you would call me back in a timely manner. There was no call back, and I don't think you're ever going to call me back.
Okay. I think that was somebody else in my office, and I don't believe you left a number with them.
Well, we left the number.
Okay. So will you please give it to me again?
Sure. We'll give you a number. So when are you guys going to give me a call back with some answers?
We can probably get back to you by the end of the day. And you are just looking for the question that I have right now. Was there a transfer?
Was there a transfer of any kind to South Carolina? Mm-hmm. Second question, does Dyess Air Force Base admittedly have nuclear weapons? Third question, are you aware of the fact that Lindsey Graham said there might be a nuclear attack in South Carolina? Fourth question, if there was a transfer, where was it going to?
Hold on. Can you please slow down?
Sure.
The one I left off was, does Dyess have nukes? And what was the question after that?
Was the transfer going to South Carolina?
Okay.
And are you or any of your higher-ups concerned whatsoever that Lindsey Graham says there might be a nuclear strike on South Carolina based on the intel that Dyess Air Force was transporting nuclear warheads to South Carolina just hours before he came out and said that? Yeah, we'd really appreciate you calling us back today. And please, as soon as you physically can do so, please give us a call back.
Okay, we will look into the answers and we will get back with you. Do you have an email address that works?
Anthony@infowars.com. I just wanted to ask you one question on a personal basis. Does it trouble you that there is intel of nuclear warheads coming from Dyess hours before Lindsey Graham says that there could be a nuclear strike from terrorists in South Carolina if we don't go to war with Syria? Does that trouble you?
Again, Anthony, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to get back with you on these answers.
Okay, well, we'll talk with you later today. We'll be expecting the call.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, bye. Well, there it is. This woman, I think it's exactly the same woman I spoke to last Tuesday. No answers. They say they'll call us back. I don't know if they will. If they do, we will have it here on video in another special report, and we'll see what they say to those questions. Of course, they're probably going to say, no, we don't have nukes. There was no transfer. You're crazy. And no, we don't even know what Lindsey Graham's talking about. We never heard about that. But I will try the best I can to pry some information from what they tell us and get to the bottom of the issue and seek truth in news. I'm Anthony Guccifer. Everyone needs to look at this. Everyone needs to look at these reports. We do know what's going on. The intel is right. This guy's been right time and time again. And it would be one thing if the intel was there, but the other entire thing that turns us into an insane explosion of information is that Lindsey Graham came out just hours later and said that there could be a nuclear attack on South Carolina if we do not go to war with Syria. I'm Anthony Guccifer. I'll be joining you soon again with another call.
Saying they brought out nukes hidden in the hangars. They loaded them on 18-wheelers.
A U.S. nuclear warhead was rear-ended by the U.S. Army in a caravan caught on tape in Great Falls, Montana, a blunder of all blunders. While in a heavily guarded convoy complete with choppers overhead, a military semi carrying a nuclear warhead was rear-ended by a support vehicle. Take a look at that. You can see in the video a police chase vehicle is attempting to stop the onlooker from recording, but then it looks like, there it is, there's the tap. From my perspective, it appears that the police escort that was stopping created, what they call a gaper's effect. And the military, even the military semi, slowed down to rubberneck, triggering the chase vehicle to rear end him. Take a look. Okay, so he slows down. He's slowing down. And now the semi is slowing down right there. He slows down, bam, and he hits him. So it looks to me like the police chase vehicle is at fault here.
The police with other officers said, where's the authorization? They wouldn't sign paperwork, so the police wouldn't let him leave. The base commander came out and said, let him go. And then the media, TV stations, radio called that base. Dias would never deny it. And then you saw all hell break loose about nukes hitting the East Coast right where we said they were taking them. Look, this is above my pay grade. But let me give you another little news flash. It's above anybody's pay grade. Paul Watson's report broke at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. It's red-linked. Top hacker, Chicago nuke attack planned for 2015, Guccifer. Now, to be clear, I've been contacted to show how I've been connected to this just by the media's research, even though I'm not connected to it. We've been contacted by LA Times, New York Daily News, New York Magazine, for some reason, all the New York outfits. Rolling Stone again, and a bunch of others wanting to talk to me about Guccifer. And basically, saying, well, you leak a lot of stuff. You have a lot of breaking stuff. Are you Guccifer, or is he giving you info, or is she giving you info? We don't know who, or didn't know. Now, of course, more of it's known, who Guccifer is. But it's one of the top hackers in the world. We've had Captain Crunch on, who's a listener, and he's the top granddaddy hacker, but he's not currently the top hacker. And Guccifer has been very credible. And so Paul Watson filed this 3-minute report. We're going to play it, then go to Paul Watson in London. But I want to remind you, and we'll go to a document cam shot here for TV viewers, that back in September of last year, we broke this news. Dias refuses to deny secret nuke transfer. Dias officially responds to secret nuke transfer, refuses to deny. And it's right down the road from the big company that is the only company in the U.S. that demilitarizes them, deactivates them, Pantex. But they weren't going to Pantex. They were going to Lindsey Graham's district. Within hours of us breaking this, Graham comes out on CBS News and says a nuke attack is imminent in the Carolinas or in Georgia or in New York. Exclusive. High-level source confirms secret U.S. nuclear warhead transfer off the books to Obama. Senator Grant warns of nuke strike after missing warhead report. You can go read the CBS report in our story, watch the video. In fact, if you scroll down for TV viewers, there's the CBS article. By the way, they went and changed the article about a day later. They do a lot of that now. So I don't know exactly what's going on. But we've played the clip before. Somebody could probably find it. He said it on CNN. Andy said it, similar thing on Fox. The head of the Hart-Rubin Commission, Gary Hart, said, and remember, before 9/11, and we played this clip ad nauseum, he basically said a huge terror attack's coming. It's going to change the way we live our lives. Once it happened, he said on C-SPAN, we need to use this disaster to bring in what President Bush's father called for, a new world order, and make lemonade out of these lemons. Well, he said Dallas, Cleveland, Chicago, and Denver would be hit by terrorist nuke. And we see preparations in the brainwashing of the military and police that patriots in the military might get nukes and detonate them. And then we see shows like Jericho, where a private security company like Halliburton, or groups like it, I guess you'd say something like XZ, formerly Blackwater, does it to bring in martial law. Post-apocalyptic action drama series. Aired in CBS from 2006, 2008. So this is out there. But when you hear us talk about it, it's not coming from conjecture. It's coming from high-level sources. Now, remember, we first reported this. People didn't believe it. It was in the local news. There was a big fracas, and then our sources said, Wayne Madsen actually at the time broke it, that it was missing high-tech cruise missiles, 4 of them, the media said 2, on a B-52 going down to Louisiana. And we had sources down there that said it was 4. Weldon had a buddy still in the Air Force down there and saw it all happen. And they were trying to disappear, Cheney was, 4 high-tech cruise missiles. So let's get something straight. There's real smoke here. That means there's fire. Like, I can see fire in the smoke. I don't know exactly how bad it is. It's like pulling up to a house fire in a fire department. You don't know how bad it is till you get inside generally. It could explode any minute. I don't know how bad it is, but it stinks. And this would be the perfect way to make Obama look like a victim, his town, his people. I don't know how big a nuke they would detonate. We're on 2 affiliates in Chicago. I'm not in the business here to scare people. I'm not the one originating this report. It's a top hacker who's released hundreds of documented real hacks and is the premier hacker. Probably a consortium of hackers trying to warn people, though they claim it's one guy now. Let's play Paul Watson's report, go to it, and then to your phone calls. I will get to your phone calls. I have moved the guest that was coming up at the bottom of the hour. Let's go ahead and go to Paul Watson's report filed just 20 minutes ago at Infowars.com.
Guccifer, the Romanian hacker who accessed private email accounts of numerous top government and military officials, as well as the Bush family, is quoted in the New York Times as predicting a nuclear attack on Chicago sometime in 2015. Having eluded the FBI and the Secret Service for years, Guccifer, real name Marcel Lazar, infamously hacked George W. Bush's creepy self-portraits while also accessing email accounts belonging to Colin Powell, as well as military officers and celebrities. He is now serving a 7-year prison sentence in Romania. Explaining the purpose behind his hacking, which was conducted merely by guessing the security answers to people's email accounts to obtain their passwords, Guccifer's manifesto is, quote, a potpourri of conspiracy theories about the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, the 1997 death of Princess Diana, and alleged plans for a nuclear attack in Chicago in 2015. And whether you believe it to be the work of a conspiracy or a plot crafted by a group like ISIS, the fact is that Chicago has been a terror target since 9/11. Earlier this summer, the FBI warned that ISIS were planning to target major US cities after the terror group put out a series of chilling tweets identifying the Old Republic building in Chicago as being in the crosshairs. Guccifer also makes another intriguing comment during the New York Times interview, quote, this world is run by a group of conspirators called the Council of Illuminati, very rich people, noble families, bankers and industrialists from the 19th and 20th century. Of course, a far cry from the original 18th century Bavarian Illuminati, the modern incarnation largely centers around claims by hip-hop artists and other members of the entertainment industry that they're part of an occult secret elite that controls the planet. In name-checking the Illuminati, Guccifer is most likely making the general point that global events are coordinated and managed to some extent by elite banking families, just as they have been down the centuries. But what's your view on Guccifer's comments about the Illuminati and a nuclear attack on Chicago in 2015? Let me know in the comments below. Check out the other videos, subscribe to the channel. I'm Paul Joseph Watson reporting for Infowars.com.
Guccifer coming out, who did get into all these top people's emails. I mean, they admitted this was all real. He really did this and more. And I know they claim he's the only person operating under that name. I don't think that's the case from what I've studied and seen. Obviously, it's now coming out that Snowden is not one person, but a consortium group, and I'm not even sure exactly who he's working for, but that's another subject. This cloak and dagger stuff gets into that. We're trying to reveal the cloak and dagger to people so that the tricks don't work anymore. The way to beat this system is to expose it and to bring in a more honorable, chivalry-based system, which is more secure for everybody. True security, true peace, true prosperity. Paul, what's your gut on all this?
Well, what's interesting about it, Alex, is, it came out in this New York Times article, which came out last night. They visited the Transylvanian prison in which he's serving this 7-year sentence. And he basically said to them, look, before I answer any questions, I'm going to read out this manifesto as to why I did this hacking and what the purpose of it was. So he obviously expected them, at least to some extent, to reprint some of his manifesto because it was a condition of the interview itself. That's what it says in the article. But all they afford to it is one dismissive paragraph in which they mention, 9/11, the death of Princess Diana, and the alleged plot plan to attack Chicago with a nuclear weapon in 2015. So obviously this was and they talk later about how he makes extensive notes about all these plots, which obviously he's garnered some knowledge of.
Obviously, this is where people still fall for it. It's the New York Times, just like Snowden tried to talk to them first, and all they did was tattle on him. You go to the CIA, you go to the New York Times, that's who they are. You go to the Carnegie Endowment for Peace, that's really, they're above the CIA, above the State Department. You go to this trust, and you expect them to then make you credible. It's the opposite. And this is how the trolls are. They're on Infowars.com freaking out about this right now, and on YouTube saying we're liars. We're reporting on the New York Times. They're saying we made this up. See, Paul? Because they're not really trolls. We've tracked some of the IP addresses before. These are coming out of government servers, Paul. They don't even, and corporate servers, they don't even try to hide it now. Just like the Obama administration guys saying, the public's dumb, we lied to them. It's a plan to rip them off. They just hope people are dumb and don't check. They'll probably say that this Guccifer guy, or Guccifer, doesn't even exist as well. The point is this may stop a Chicago nuke attack, and then we don't get thanked for that, or Guccifer doesn't get thanked. Instead, they'll just say he doesn't exist. But it's only the public being so weak-minded that allows this to happen.
Well, I mean, the screenshot from the New York Times is in the video. I will add it to the article with the link to the New York Times. So the time for
that's
denial
not good enough. I'll just call you racist, and that'll shut you down. I don't need facts. I don't need to be intellectual. Racist.
That's going to do it.
Yeah, I just need to know one word. Sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
But again, the concern is he's had access to the emails. Rockefeller family, Bush family, Council on Foreign Relations, FBI, Secret Service, aides to Bill Clinton, George Tenet, Richard Armitage, John Negroponte. The list goes on and on. Secret Service, Romanian intelligence, that's where he was arrested.
He breaks in, he has the intel, he gives it to them, and they don't want the story of the century with a confirmed hacker that's leaked nothing but truth. No, it's just, he says Chicago's going to get nuked.
Yeah, it's dismissed in a sentence. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, that's why we exist, to pick up on that kind of thing and make it into a story.
Just like Forbes last week goes, yeah, we're in a meeting with the media, with the CDC. We're supposed to cover up what appears to be Ebola cases. All right, get back into the nukes. I've been interrupting you because this gets me so upset and so excited in a bad way. Start over, Paul, with, again, for folks that just joined us, New York Times gets what's in the emails of the world elite, Rockefellers, you name it, nuke Chicago, and the idiots at the New York Times just think it's all a big joke.
Yeah, this is Guccifer, who was a hacker for several years, very prominent over the past several years, out of Transylvania. He lived in Romania. He hacked into the personal email accounts. Technically, he didn't even hack. He gathered information from the internet and guessed the password. So he wasn't even breaking some of those hacking laws. Obviously, he got in illegally, but he just guessed the security answers and the passwords. Bush family, he was the guy who released the Bush self-portraits. He also hacked the Rockefeller family, members of the Council on Foreign Relations, aides to Bill Clinton, FBI, Secret Service members, George Tenet, former CIA, Richard Armitage, John Negroponte. So he hacked all these accounts. There's actually a scandal with Colin Powell, who he also hacked, where this Romanian politician was sending nude photos of herself to Colin Powell. So he had to come out and admit that he'd been hacked and then deny that he was having an affair with her. So this was all confirmed that he was getting into these accounts. He was arrested in Romania back in January. He was indicted in absentia in Virginia back in June. Now he's in prison for 7 years in Romania. He came out to the New York Times, said, look, I'll do an interview with you, but only if you print this manifesto, this long manifesto that he read out before he agreed to any questions. In that manifesto was alleged plot to attack Chicago with a nuclear weapon in 2015. But it was dismissed by the New York Times in a paragraph as some kind of paranoid conspiracy theory alongside the death of Princess Diana and 9/11.
And let me say this.
Details.
Let me say this to Guccifer. We want your manifesto. We will print it in whole. Infowars.com is ready. So you just, I know they probably aren't letting him get info out because they're all scared of what he's got. You know, we've got Romanian listeners that have sent us Bilderberg footage and stuff from Istanbul, Turkey. In fact, we have that guy's phone number. Jacobson has it. We ought to get a hold of our Romanian sources and deputize him as a reporter and send him in if he can get in. Of course, they may have only let the New York Times in to see him because they knew he'd spin it. This is outrageous, Paul. Paul, you want to get on a plane? I'll pay for it. You ready to go to Transylvania, buddy? They say it's beautiful.
Maybe that's something we can talk about.
Well, you're only 3 hours away. Saddle up. Let's go.
But the only thing they actually printed out of his manifesto was the quote, "This world is run by a group of conspirators called the Council of Illuminati, very rich people, noble families, bankers and industrialists from the 19th and 20th century." So they reprinted that part of it. And then later on, they talk about him making extensive filling notebooks with conspiracy theories in small, neat handwriting. So he's obviously writing down everything that he learned through these emails, and they're dismissing it as paranoid conspiracy theories.
Well, obviously, the police seized all the copies of the stuff. I mean, Guccifer released the paintings of Bush and him in the bathtub and more. So they've got the intel. And so the good news is we know about the Chicago nuke plan. They think we're so dumb they had Hart brag about it 10 years ago. So how many times have I said I think Chicago's the major false flag target with a nuke, Paul? How many times?
Numerous times. In fact, I think there was a plot involving a terrorist to attack a building in Chicago, but the building wasn't even built when the plot was supposed to happen. So it's been in the works for a while. Of course, if it happened, they'd probably blame it on somebody like ISIS, because we had these stories from back in August about ISIS tweeting pictures of threats made against Chicago buildings, like the Old Republic building, which is in Chicago. There was another story this year, again in August, man arrested for making bomb threat in Chicago after he flew an ISIS flag from his car and led police on a chase. So, you know, whether it's going to be by ISIS or blamed on ISIS or patsies or whatever, as he said, definitely Chicago has been a big target since at least 9/11.
That's right. We're putting the CBS News story up about the ISIS plan is being protected by you-know-who, the criminal globalists running our government.
Is Paul Joseph Watson from the UK, and we have a story that Paul just put up on the Infowars.com site. Guccifer says Pennsylvania city to be nuked next year. Top hacker has archive of unreleased emails from military and intelligence officials. Paul, welcome. Fill us in on what the latest revelation from Guccifer is. Is this something else from the New York Times? Because they interviewed him in prison about a week or 2 weeks ago, and at that time he had talked about possibly a false flag nuclear event in Chicago. Now, is this another article that they've released some additional information?
That's right, yeah. It's from the original interview with the Romanian hacker Guccifer, who is in a Romanian prison right now. And basically, it's some information that was unreleased in the first New York Times article. So the New York Times came out and said that he gave them a manifesto, which was a precondition to do the interview. But they didn't reprint any of the information contained in Guccifer's manifesto. They only referred to the fact that he mentioned the potential for a nuke attack in Chicago in 2015. Now, in this second article, They also acknowledged that Guccifer said there was also a plan for a nuclear attack in a Pennsylvania city also next year. And why this matters is because Guccifer hacked the emails of top military intelligence and political professionals. He hacked the emails of the Bush family, the Rockefeller family, members of the Council on Foreign Relations, former Clinton aides, FBI officials, Federal Reserve officials. So he hacked these emails. He got this information, Colin Powell as well.
Yeah, actually, people remember. If people remember, there were those pictures that we had, the articles at the time. You can go back and see them on our archives at Infowars.com. He got pictures of George Bush where he was essentially painting his feet in the bathtub and things like that. So they were intricate emails. He revealed an extramarital affair with Colin Powell. He had an email that was going back and forth between George Shultz and Colin Powell and others saying, we need to get Henry Kissinger to put pressure on Tony Blair to come to Bohemian Grove. You got to impress upon him that this is really important. These emails were going back and forth by the guy who is now head of the Rupert Murdoch news empire. So he got into some really deep stuff, and they tried to downplay this in the last article. I haven't seen this newest one that you're reporting on, but in the first article, they tried to downplay it and say, oh, he's just trying to put a political spin on this. He was really just eavesdropping on pretty girls, and yet there was a lot of government emails that he infiltrated, wasn't there? Exactly, and the big point here is he says that he has another treasure trove of emails that he hasn't publicly released. Many of them have been released on cryptome.org, but in this new New York Times article, they reveal that he's got a bigger archive that he has stashed away in the cloud for safekeeping and perhaps for use as a bargaining chip with the American authorities. So maybe he's using this as a threat to try and lessen his 7-year prison sentence and get out of jail sooner. But in this latest article, he's now talking about a Pennsylvania city. And again, this isn't just some random person on the internet. Right. This is somebody who's had direct access to the emails of top military and intelligence professionals. So that's why it's at least of interest. The New York Times didn't find it of any interest. They just said it was a conspiracy-laden rant about the Illuminati. And he actually had a psychological evaluation, Guccifer, otherwise known as Mr. Lazar, and they found that he was completely sane. He wasn't prone to delusions or anything like that. So, you know, we're merely taking this and highlighting it and saying this is interesting that this top hacker who had access to all these military and intelligence political emails is now saying that Pennsylvania could be a target for a nuclear attack next year, after saying that Chicago could also be in the crosshairs. And even if it's, you know, not some kind of staged attack, we know that ISIS have put out propaganda where they directly name buildings in Chicago that they plan to attack. So this has already been out there previously. It sure would be interesting to talk to this guy before he gets killed by these people, because he talked about, and they were laughing about it in the New York Times, talked about the Illuminati and these elite people who were manipulating things. And yet you look at the emails going back and forth about Bohemian Grove, and you look at this guy, Andrew Knight, who at the time was the number 2 under Rupert Murdoch, now has essentially assumed control of the newspapers there. Somebody who has long ties as a CEO of conservative British press organizations and mainstream editor. He's there trying to get Tony Blair to Bohemian Grove and writing Colin Powell saying, you know, put pressure on him from Henry Kissinger. We need to get him there. I mean, there is something going on that he has seen the inside of it, just like Alex Jones saw the inside of it when he snuck in there and took the pictures. I really would like to get that detailed information from him, but he's hopefully he's leveraging this to keep himself safe in prison. Well, yeah, the point about Bohemian Grove, the email which was sent to Colin Powell encouraging Tony Blair to attend Bohemian Grove in 2012, is it again demolishes the myth that Bohemian Grove is either just a talking shop or a summer camp. Right. Because he's very insistent that Blair go there, because obviously it's important in terms of influence, networking, making connections, and coming to major decisions. We know that the Manhattan Project was crafted at Bohemian Grove, so major geopolitical global decisions take place there. And these Guccifer hacked emails are another illustration of that. Yeah, he evidently was reluctant to go. Maybe, he'd heard of the homosexual reputation of the place. And they were saying, you have to impress upon him how imperative that it is that he clear his calendar and get to this. This is George Shultz and Colin Powell and Henry Kissinger. All you guys lean on him to get him there because this is imperative that he get there. So this is not just some kind of, partying weekend. This is something where they really have to get him involved. It is not just kind of a relaxing weekend as they like to portray it. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover from the Guccifer release? Has the New York Times talked about anything in terms of which city it might be, or did they mention anything other than a city in Pennsylvania possibly being up for a nuclear attack?
They just mentioned Pennsylvania. Obviously, you would assume that it's Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. Those, as far as I know, are the two biggest cities in Pennsylvania. So, I mean, we'll keep track of it. The other thing on the email that Colin Powell received, it said, quote, lack of exposure suggests that Tony has not yet got his priorities straight.
Exactly.
So they're quite candid. This is not just a suggestion to invite him to a party. This is a very candid and forceful recommendation that Colin Powell put pressure on Tony Blair to attend Bohemian Grove. So these emails have already proven very interesting. And as he said, Guccifer has another stash that he's yet to release. He's using it as a bargaining chip with the U.S. government. So we'll continue to track the story.
Wow.